Hello to everyone, welcome. Welcome to all of you, those who are already on a journey of your faith and whatever denomination you're coming from, you're all welcome. Welcome to a new chapter of the cloud of witnesses in the courts of heaven. This is your Pastor Yeti. I hope that I'm not overwhelming you, and that's not the meaning of this very deep insight. Come with me in the journey as we will discover maybe things hearing from the first time. Remember that it's very important to open your mind and heart and look with your eyes on Jesus. So the second podcast in this insight of the cloud of witnesses is shifts in the spirit realm. I have often wondered what transpires in the spirit realm when someone dies. The Bible gives us insight into this by some of the terms used to describe death and stepping into the afterlife. For instance, God told Josiah in 2 Chronicles 34:28 that he would be gathered to his ancestors and would not see the evil that would come on the land. Surely I will gather you to your fathers, and you shall be gathered to your grave in peace, and your eyes shall not see all the calamity which I will bring on this place and its inhabitants. So they brought back word to the king. This speaks of a great reunion occurring with those who have died before us. Of course, we are speaking of this from a Christian perspective, and those who are born again and saved, as I may say, and be saved by Christ who did the complete work. There is still a journey. Being saved is a matter of the heart, where you see that there is a true following in the journey of your faith. When we die, we will encounter those who have died before us. There will be a gathering together again with our loved ones who know the Lord. The Bible also gives us further insight in the story. Jesus told of Lazarus and the rich man in Luke 16:22. Lazarus was a beggar, while there was a rich man who lived in opulence. Both died. The Bible describes Lazarus' transition to heaven. So, it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. Angels came and carried the rich man to be with Abraham in paradise. It would appear that when those who belong to God die, there is an angelic escort into our heavenly dwelling places. We do not make the journey by ourselves. Such suggests that angels of God help us and carry us into this next place of our existence. Another term that is used to express this transition from this life to the next one is found in 2 Timothy 4, verse 6. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. The word departure is the Greek word analusis, and amount other things. It means to raise, to anchor for a ship to sail away. This world implied that while we are here in our natural bodies, we are anchored. We are tied off and are not free to sail into the vast unknowns. At that, however, we become untethered. The anchor is raised and we are freed from the restrictions of this mortal flesh. We are freed in the spirit to move in a way not known until then. This is an amazing picture for us of the glory of the next life, as opposed to the fear of death. Paul also spoke of the next realm of life in 1 Corinthians 13, 8-12, when he describes that we know now in contrast to what and how we will know then. Love never fails, but whatever there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I also am known. Paul is describing the next life in comparison to this one. In the next life, there will be no need of prophecy, tongues, or knowledge. The only thing that will remain is love. Everything in part will be done away with because the complete will have come. Clearly, the complete is love. 1 John 4:8 tells us that God himself is love. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. Paul went on to liken this life to being a child. He writes of speaking as a child, thinking as a child, and reasoning as a child. This is what we do in this life in comparison to being an adult in the next life. Our speech, thoughts, and reasoning will be advantaged in the next life, much like the difference between a child and an adult is in this life. There will be a new level of awareness and maturity. He then likens this life to seeing in a mirror dimly. The next life, in comparison, will be like standing face to face. In other words, in this life, it is like seeing a reflection that you can't embrace. In the next life, there will be the full substance of what we can hold. Paul then speaks of us knowing only partially in this life. There are unknowns we have no answer for in this life. In the next life, however, we will know fully. All questions will be answered. We will also be fully known. Paul spoke of this in Colossians 3 verse 4. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. When Jesus is revealed and we step into the next life, we shall also be revealed with him. A full awareness of who we are shall be seen by us and everyone. 1 John 3, 1-3 tells us that who we really are will not be fully known until Jesus appears. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called children of God. And therefore the world does not know us, because it did not know him. Beloved, now we are children of God, and it was not yet been revealed what we shall be. But we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And everyone who has his hope in him purifies himself just as he is pure. The world does not know who we are, and therefore we should not allow the world to tell us who we are or to fashion and form us. We are told that what we shall be not being fully seen. It will only be manifest when we see him. In other words, we shall be fully known. All the searching for identity and significance will be over. A full revelation of who we are will be set in place as those who have this hope. It should birth in us a desire to be pure before him. We allow the purifying work of God to move in us and through us in the hope of fully becoming like him. In the next life, we will know even as we are known. The passing from this life to the next should be a very exciting time. The Apostle Paul had no fear of this. In fact, he had an expectation of this time when it occurred. Philippians 1:21-25 shows Paul wrestling with going on to heaven or staying here on earth. It would appear that perhaps God was giving him a choice. For to me, to live in Christ and to die is gain. But if I live on in this flesh, this will mean fruit from my labor yet. What I shall choose I cannot self. For I am hard pressed between the two, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to remain in the flesh is more needful for you. And being confident of this, I know that I shall remain and continue with you all for your progress and joy of faith. Paul chooses to stay on earth for the benefit of the church and God's people who needed him. He, however, was aware that dying was gain. He knew the next life was far better than this one. We will step into the next life with perhaps an even greater influence. It is said of Abel in Abraham 11:4, who offered a more excellent sacrifice, that he, being dead, is still speaking. By faith, Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it he, being dead, still speaks. What we do in this life does determine our place in the next life and the realm of heaven. We can see something of this from Isaiah 6:1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. What was there about the death of Uzziah that unlocked a new spiritual dimension that allowed this encounter for Isaiah? Isaiah is already a prophet of the Lord, yet he connects the dying of Uzziah to his experience in the glory of God and his throne room. Was Isaiah just using the death of Uzziah as a timeline to pinpoint for the reader when this visitation occurred? I don't think so. Or was Isaiah suggesting that the dying of Uzziah unlocked something in the spirit realm that allowed him to have this encounter that wasn't allowed before? Jesus' life, given as a seed in the ground, has allowed the harvest and impact of his life to be greatly expanded. When I look at what Isaiah said about Uzziah, I had to consider that maybe the same thing occurred with him. I think it is clear that Uzziah's death caused something in the spirit world to be opened that was closed until that time. It seems very apparent to me that Uzziah's death shifted something in the unseen realm. There are powers of darkness that actually influence the culture of nations. From their position in the heavenly realms or the unseen realms of the spirit, they influence the minds of people. 2 Corinthians 10:4-6 describes some of the conflict we are in for the minds of culture. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. This is not just describing a personal battle to control our minds, but actually is describing the battle for a culture mind. We are told that we can bring down arguments, high things seeking to exalt themselves in every thought process that is operating in a culture. One of the ways to do this is through removing the principalities, empowerment that is coming from humans. The reason humans empower powers of darkness is because God gave the earth realm to humankind. Psalm 115 verse 16 tells us that the domain of the earth is under man. Even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth he has given to the children of man. When King Uzziah died, something that had been closed opened. Isaiah encountered the glory of God's presence in a powerful way. What was it about Uzziah's death that caused the spiritual realm to open that had been closed to that point? King Uzziah was a good king who got off track and acted presumptuously. 2 Chronicles 26, 3-4 tells us that Uzziah did good and right as king before the Lord. Uzziah was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jecholiah of Jerusalem, and he did what was right in the eyes and in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah had done. God was pleased with Uzziah. However, after much success and blessing of the Lord, Uzziah didn't guard his heart. The 2 Chronicles 26, 16-21 tells us a sad story of a mighty king who, through an act of presumption, didn't end well. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction, for he transgressed against the Lord his God by entering the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. So Uzziah the priest went after him, and with him were 80 priests of the Lord, valiant men. And they withstood King Uzziah and said to him, "It is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for the priests, the son of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Get out of the sanctuary, for you have trespassed. You shall have no honor from the Lord." Then Uzziah became furious, and he had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was angry with the priest, leprosy broke out on his forehead, before the priest in the house of the Lord, beside the incense altar. And Uzziah, the chief priest, and all the priests looked at him, and there on his forehead he was leprous. So they thrust him out of that place. Indeed, he also hurried to get out, because the Lord had struck him. King Uzziah was a leper until the day of his death. He dwelt in an isolated house because he was a leper, for he was cut off from the house of the Lord. Then Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. The Lord struck Uzziah because of his presumption to operate as a priest. This was not allowed in the days. He was king, but was not priest. Only in the New Testament order are we allowed to operate as both king and priest to our God. This part of the New Testament blessing. In the Old Testament, only David, who had this revelation as an Old Testament man, was allowed this privilege. When Uzziah tried to do it, it was a severe miscalculation of judgment. He was penalized harshly. This results in the king being a leper until he died and having to turn rulership over to his son. Perhaps people dying and going into the heavenly realms as part of the cloud of witnesses, giving us new places of power before the throne of God. The result is new heavenly activity and encounter of heaven for us on earth. The great cloud of witnesses are giving testimony on our behalf before the throne. in agreement with Jesus' intercession. Their witness before the throne calls us into remembrance before God. This is just a thought concerning the activity of those who die and enter this realm. Perhaps they are doing more than we know. Perhaps they actually are still helping the process of the kingdom from where they are. We don't know. May the Lord grant us wisdom and understanding. That's all that we need. Wisdom and understanding. It is a mystery. You can fight over it. You can neglect it. You can say this is all not okay for me. That is all fine because you have the right to think, because you have a mind given to think about all this. But think wise and ask the Lord for wisdom and understanding. We know very much that there is more going on between heaven and earth. We know that. So let's have a prayerful heart. Let's have an open mind and heart with our eyes on Jesus. Blessings. This is your Pastor Yadi. Bye-bye.